Hello, welcome back to part 3 of the Fighting Temptations review. And today we're talking about the fact that, picking up where I left off, it was a judge show. What was it? Maybelline. It was 2 white women. These people had been friends for years. Just like in the movie, that aunt had been associated in the church with this woman for years. But this woman knew in this court case that her best friend was definitely allergic to coconut oil because they had went to a cooking experience years before, and the woman had ate something, okay? And she had a horrible reaction, had to be rushed to the hospital. Now, this woman, she wants the ability to win this cooking contest. They both went into it together, I'm assuming, and she wanted the ability to win it. But she was going up against her friend. She knew that woman was allergic to coconut oil, and she put into the food that they were creating, or that was being created, the coconut oil, and admitted that. And at the end of the judge program, this woman turns around and says to her, "You realize you almost killed me, right?" And the woman said, "Well, I won the contest now, didn't I?" She didn't even care. This is how you know people. This woman in this film says, "I was waiting for this woman to die for all these years." And she gives the choir to her nephew. First words out her mouth was, "I was waiting all these years for this woman to die." Okay, I'm going to leave that right there. So, he gets the choir, and he's like, "Okay, who is the choir?" It was like a handful of people, like a janitor and this person and this person. And he's like, "That's your choir?" He's like, "We need to work on this." Now, this woman is already pissed off. So, she don't even want to give him any instructions. Going back to the bitterness I was just talking about. The individual is dealing with a level of bitterness and envy that they don't want to let go of. So they are playing a game in the process because they are envious and jealous. This woman was envious and jealous that this man got the position in the first place that she wanted. But she had an upper hand over him because she was from the town and she had a position administratively in the church. So she could lord over him because she didn't like the fact that he got the choir. She wanted that all. She wanted control of everything. Okay? In some of your spouse's life, there were people in their life that wanted, whether it was friends that they thought were friends, or associates that they thought were associates, all this kind of stuff. They was looking to get their spot because they saw the truth of their heart. Okay? So this was the level of projection that was being done to these men. Okay? By the women and the individuals and the people they work with, because they saw the God within them and the heart that they had. Because some of your husbands were Davids. They had a heart for God, and some individuals were targeting and trying to lord over them to try to break that in them. Okay? Break them and turn themselves into God in their lives. Okay? Coming back. There needs to be trust and workmanship amongst one another in order for things to be prepared. This man is trying to create this choir for a gospel explosion that will make the entire church look good. This woman should be helping him do that through the preparation that she is operating in, but instead she understands and has knowledge and knows certain things, but she in all actuality was a counterfeit to what was actually supposed to be in that church. So this young man sitting there, what am I going to do to bring this church together? So he goes to the radio station, talks to Steve Harvey's character, and starts doing radio blasts to have that there's a church rehearsal for the choir. People from all over, they just coming in and they just horrible. And he's having himself a hard time trying to figure out what the heck am I going to do with these individuals that are in here. This ain't going to work. But then one day he's driving by and he sees Lily. Lily is pure. You are pure. Your spouse was out there in the world and he think he too tainted and has been operating in the level of shame because of that. Don't want to come near you. It's like, Lily, he knew her from growing up. Now, I don't know whether he knew her as a singer or was assured of that, but they said, I think somebody told him that she sang at the club, the local club, which was the same club his mama used to sing at. So he's like, she sing? Let me see if I can get her. He goes and he approaches, tries to use his smooth talk on her. I told y'all in another video, I'm going to have to look for it. Them using that smooth language or smooth word on not going to work. I know I mentioned it in the movie review for the Exaltation, which I used the movie Glitter. It's the one with the open door cover. But them trying to come at you with words, you onto that charisma ain't gonna work. Not on you. They gotta come another way. So he tries the first time. When he meets her on the street, she saying no. So he figures out that he gonna have to come back around and try to get her again. So he goes to the club that she work at. And that night she's singing Fever. And then he sits down and tries to use the approach and entry point of the fact of, remember when we was kids and this and the other thing, and tries to get her in reminiscence to try to reel her back around to coming in to joining the choir. And they were sitting up there laughing and all that kind of stuff. And he starts to get caught in his lie because he mentions the aunt. He's like, oh, I talked to her just before she passed away. She said, you did? He's like, yeah, I talked to her a couple days before she passed. And she said, your aunt was in a coma for 2 weeks before she passed away. So where he was going in the direction, he completely lost her when that happened. She was done with him, went back to what she was doing. And he's sitting there thinking, she got a man. Not knowing that she has a son at this particular point in time. Some of you may have children, but some of you may have a ministry, a vehicle, a child God has you caring after, okay? That is what you are protecting. Lord brought my remembrance to a dream that I had about a year or so ago. And the thing that you have, your spouse needs to put his hands on, okay? Vice versa, the thing that they're dealing with, they need you to put your hands on it. So it's a project, something that he's trying to birth, that Lord gave him since he's been walking with God, that you're going to have to put your hands on. And you're the only one that can put your hands on it because God gave it to him. Okay? Remember, God makes room for you and puts you before great men. So he will cause a situation to occur that individual will need you. He does not call the qualified. He qualifies the called. That man needs you for something. You may not know right now what that thing is. Okay? But whatever God puts on your heart, I don't know whether this is going to come up before or after I post this, but I'm going to be releasing the word, if it hasn't come up already, of the word of the Lord for 2024. And in that, I talk about Joseph and the fact that your husband is the Joseph, and your husband may have to put down whatever it was he was doing. And if you look at it in these contexts, God probably pulled and destroyed and dismantled whatever he was doing, because God gave him an assignment specifically. And because your hands need to come into contact with it, he's not going to be able to work on anything else. And there's the confirmation. You hear that? Whenever you hear a sign, that means pay attention. Something was snatched away from that man, and you're going to have to work on whatever that is that man got from God together. God's making room for you. Okay? So with that being said, there's going to be a level of challenge. It's going to challenge you. You're going to need to have a level of growth and consistent growth in order to become better. But Darren needs to become better. He's trying to learn how to operate in this environment. He's not used to being around the church folks, and the church people ain't been there in a long time. He needs that element. But he also needs you. You're outside of it. Whatever career field your spouse was in, whatever level or place that he's in, some of y'all, you're called to the industry your spouse is in. He, at this phase of his life, needs you next to him. He is going to need you for whatever project God's put in his heart, whether it's in that industry that he's called to, or a preparation season to prepare for where God's called him to, whether it's out of that industry or in that industry, because you may be doing adjacent things. For instance, some people were in industries, okay, that maybe they were in the NFL, they were in they were in the acting field, they were in that. This is a season. I was just listening to one of my ministers that literally they were talking about the fact that God's pulling a lot of people out of those industries, celebrities, all kinds of stuff. I did not just say at the beginning of this, it's about to be a clean sweep. But because of that, God may be having these folks create adjacent businesses. This woman said about a year and a half ago, the ministry that I follow, one of my main pastors, said that God is literally creating and pulling out individuals. What's going to happen is they may not be in the main Hollywood industry no more. They may just be independent of the industry, meaning they can do what they want, when they want, however they desire to do it. Okay. And they're building a brand in that way. I've been looking at a couple different YouTube people that they talk about the independent music industry. They talk about independence. Some of these people are going to be coming out and going into independent things with you, but the wisdom that they have is going to help, because you're supposed to come alongside them and do something together with that individual. Movies, music, some of them, like I said, NBA players. But how could an NBA player, because he's supposed to be out here teaching. I was looking at something on television the other weekend, and it was old people that used to be in the I'm thinking of them but can't think of the name of them. It was a dance, the dance crew they used to do for the NBA. Well, they were part of that, and now they teach college students or high school students in youth groups and stuff like that. Some of them are going to come out and end up using their same skills in other ways, and you're supposed to help them as community leaders in those areas. Some of them are going to leave the industry and go into YouTube. They're going to be YouTube celebrities. Some of those people are going to go and do independent project. Look at what's her name? The one that did Insecure. I can't think of her name off the top of my head. She started out, she did a web series, YouTube series, and then ended up getting back on television or getting on television. And that's the route that God's going to take you and your spouse through. And maybe you have knowledge of one thing and they don't have as much knowledge in that area, but you're going to help them rebound in that category. But they need you in order to get that done. You understand what I'm saying? So, with that being said, he needed her to become a part of the choir. So he comes back and he meets her tries his third attempt. He meets her at the general store. And she's paying for her groceries. He's trying to talk to her. She's like, look, I don't have an interest in whatever it is you trying to sell me. You full of it. She pretty much reads him for filth. And some of y'all, because you know where your spouse was, you could read him for filth too. You're like, I know where you've been. I know what you've been doing. Come at me correct or don't come at me at all. Okay. So he ends up having to pay for her groceries because she was a little bit short or something like that. And she was going to leave it. It was like, I got to go take care of something with my son. So she tries to play it off. They're going to need to help you. And some of you are in a financial bind. Let's just be honest. Some of y'all is in some financial issues. And they're going to come in at the nick of time. And he paid for all her groceries that day. And she thanked him when she went to go get her son from the barbershop. He sees a little boy coming to her and is like, who's the kid? He's like, the boy says his name is Dean, or she calls him by the name. And then he realizes, oh my God, that's the guy. He's like, yes, this is Dean. Some of you, you're going to introduce them to the fact that you have a ministry, which is your vehicle, which is your child. And they are going to get to know your child as this process is going. So because of that fact that he did her the favor, she said, okay, I will try and see what's going on. But you do realize Pauletta is not going to let me on that choir, right? You going into this, there are certain people, and even God has given you wisdom of the places that you're supposed to go. That may be even associated with your spouse. And you know, there are people that are up there already that you're like, they ain't gonna let me in there. Those are no. Whether it's a workplace environment, whatever place that is. But your spouse is the door that's going to get you in. He brought her in there and he said she going to be on this choir. They like, she's that harlot and this, that, and the other. Paulette was having herself a fit. The fact that he brought her in there. And people going to have a fit because you came in there. Do you hear what I am saying? But remember, they operating in bitterness and misery. And misery likes company. So because of that, they are trying to divide the choir and all that kind of stuff and start confusion and all kinds of conflicts when you're trying to bring them together. So with that being said, you have the understanding that you know what is coming. You have understanding. There's certain wisdoms that God has given you, and your spouse knows this. And because he knows that you have wisdom and understanding, when he brought her in the first day of choir practice, they sitting there, he's trying to be like cool, and she's like, well, how are we going to do this if you don't organize us from lowest level singer to highest level singer? Or vice versa. I forget. And he's like, yeah, do that. You got wisdom in certain areas that they don't. And it's like, oh, there's certain new things. And for some of your spouses, due to the fact of what they recently went through, they so discombobulated they can't even think straight when it comes to working on anything. And you gonna be like, shouldn't you just do this? Don't you know that? Isn't that what you do? Because remember, he's supposed to be a music producer, right? For some of your spouses, they are in certain industries and you would figure they would know how to do these kinds of things. But some of them have been under certain industrial people pleasing, lording over them, whatever it is in the industry that they in. They don't even know how to do basic things in relation to that. And it's not so much they don't know how to do it. They just haven't had the need to do it themselves for so long. You understand what I'm saying? So it wasn't necessary. So over the next several months, he's getting that choir in shape. They sing a few nice songs together, but here comes Pauletta talking about y'all need to get baptized and this, that, and the other. How can he run the choir if he ain't baptized? So all members of the choir are supposed to be baptized. She needed to dump herself in that water herself. Pharisaical spirit. There are going to be individuals that are already in place in the places that you're called to walk with your spouse that are going to use the laws of that industry that you don't know and try to manipulate whatever it is and wherever you're called, whether it's a corporate position, knowing the laws and the bylaws of that corporation, whether it's an industry, knowing the laws and the bylaws or the way that they operate versus way God's sending you in to do certain things, so on and so forth. Baptism. Some of your spouses are going to need to get baptized. I'm going to just throw that out there anyway. Let's just put it out there. Your spouse may attention. This is the second movie review I've done. It talked about baptism. Because the Lord led me to a number sequence, and the time on the clock in that film meant to be baptized. Some of your spouses are going to have to be rebaptized again once they come into contact with you. Next, what's up? The gospel explosion is coming up, but he done forgot that he needed to go through the process. And here come Pauletta talking about, you didn't put the paperwork in for that. And he's like, I should have been put in. I thought you put that in. She's like, well, I do the administrative work for the church, but since you got the choir, I figured that you would know how to do this. So he had to run, grab the other dude, drive up there, take the choir up to try to see if they could get him in there. He had to beg, plead, and borrow to get them in. And the guy said, he was saying no. The guy said, if you can manage to entertain the group of prisoners that are out there, then I'll let you in. They were trying to entertain the prisoners, but the older folks come in first. I'm being reminded at this particular point in time of the scripture in the Bible where it talks about the Lord is sending in that replacement of Israel. Remember when the old folks had to die off? The old way of doing things had to die off. The way that the old guy started singing first. And she had to walk up there and start singing and shut him down. The young people took over, remember? It was the young folks that had to come in and take over and go into the promised land. She had